And a special thanks to Rossella because of her kind invitation to take part of this event. It's difficult for me to talk about qualifications in Italy because, let's say, systems are quite similar but not exactly the same. So sometimes we have discussions to get an agreement about what is level EQF 4 or EQF 5. EQF means European Qualification Framework, at least for the translator. So very quickly, I'm going to try to explain to you our system in Spain. Let's say the regular, the traditional pathway to university is the same than in Italy and probably in France or the rest of the European Union. And alternatively, we have the possibility to study initial vocational education. So, how can a student reach vocational education, initial vocational education? Well, for those who, theoretically speaking, are not going to be able to finish the mandatory secondary education, I'm talking about teenagers, 15, 16 years old, they can go directly to a basic vocational education. Whatever vocational education in Spain takes 2,000 hours, so 2 years, okay? There is no negotiation about this, always the same. It includes at least 450 hours of training in real work sites or, let's say, real companies, okay? So, if you are 15 or 16 and you are having problems with your academic studies, you can go to this vocational education to become, let's say, a helper, an assistant, okay? And once you finished your studies, you get your mandatory, secondary mandatory education diploma and as well your diploma as a helper or assistant. And then you have to make a decision. You can go to voluntary secondary school, let's say to go to university, or you can study middle vocational education, which provides you the diploma of technician. We call technician, okay? It means a qualified operator. For instance, in Spanish, a construction technician is a person who is able to work as a bricklayer, but as well to do operations with concrete and iron, or maybe to perform as a tiler or something like that, okay? And then you have the possibility to make your decision again. You can go to university or you can study higher vocational education. Higher vocational education in Spain belongs to the higher education space according to the European Union, but it's in general it's not provided by universities, by let's say institutes. Okay. So if you want to become a site manager, you have to go to this higher vocational education. Okay, and once you finish your studies, your vocational education studies, you can go directly to university grades to become a building engineer or an architect, and somehow some credits, your ECTS credits, are recognized automatically. Okay, so you do not have to start from the beginning, but there is a kind of recognition depending on the grade you want to study. Okay. So in every moment, you can go from the academic side directly to university to the vocational education. And the opposite, you can go from vocational education to the academic side. This clear? I suppose this is quite similar to the Italian model. Then, on the other side, in former times, the Ministry of Employment noticed that there were lots of people working in Spain, but with no official diplomas. So let's say they had to find a solution, and the solution could be a vocational certificate. Let's say it was formal training, but it didn't have any prestige. So it was especially designed for unemployed people who wanted to reskill to, for instance, the construction industry. So there were 3 levels, but they were independent. So 10 years ago, or even more, someone decided that everything should be connected. So both ministries and social partners and regional councils agreed to create the General Council for Vocational Education and Training, and they created what we call the Spanish National Institute for Qualifications. In this sense, qualifications is not a piece of paper. The piece of paper is the diploma, according to Ministry of Education, or the vocational certificate according to the Ministry of Employment. Qualification means here a theoretical definition of the competences a worker should have to do properly his work, okay? So in Spanish we have 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. So, sorry, there is a mistake. It's level 3, the last one. Corresponding to European Qualification Framework, level 3, level 4, level 5. There is no fixed rule of the length of the training. There is no fixed rule. So this is an estimation of the length of the different qualifications, okay? So right now, every single diploma is based in at least 1 qualification, at least 1. In basic vocational education, it's only 1 because they have to study language, mathematics, and English, and things like that. In the rest of initial vocational education, the middle or the high or the higher, it is the same. Normally, it includes several qualifications, 2 or 3, or maybe 1 if it is very, very long one, but with additional competences. But in general, we are talking about technical competences, and this is crucial when thinking about the former presentations, because the transversal or soft skills, I prefer to name them power skills, because these are the skills that are forever, let's say, no matter the changes in the labor environment, are not well covered. So this is the reason that we need some projects like Icaro, Constructivet in France, to provide extra competences to our workers, okay? So, well, this is the way it works in the education system, but right now, every qualification leads to a official vocational certificate, okay? Directly. So, our unemployed people, or even working people, wanting to have an official qualification, have to study this. Okay? And now you have the possibility to develop a career going from level 1 to level 2 or level 3. Okay? So, what's the difference between the certificates and diplomas? Well, technically speaking, one vocational certificate is included in a diploma. It's exactly the same, but the diploma has extra competences, let's say. So the very good one is the vocational diploma. But if we talk about officiality, both are official. And you can move from one side to another side. I mean, if one student is failing in the educational system with language, mathematics, and skills, but is passing every training, every education related to the competences, he's not going to get the basic vocational education diploma, but he's going to get the vocational certificate. And the opposite. Someone, let's say 35 years old, studying a vocational certificate, if he finishes, he can go to vocational education system and to complete a vocational diploma, because this part is absolutely recognized from the very first moment, okay? It's quite amazing when I tell that, even in Spain. But it is even more complex, so pay attention. In Spain, from 2009, it is possible to go for a process of acknowledgement and accreditation based on your experience or non-formal training. So, if I am a bricklayer with no diploma, no certificate, I can go for one of these processes, and let's imagine that to become a bricklayer you need, let's say, 7 competences, okay? If I pass the 7 competences, I automatically received my vocational certificate. If I only pass 5 out of 7, someone in a ministry is going to tell me, go for 2 training modules to get the 2 additional competences, and automatically I will get my vocational certificate. And the same way I can get my initial vocational diploma. Is it clear? Do you believe me? Believe me, it's true, it's working in Spain. It is not working very well in the construction side, in the construction sector, because there is a lack of budget of the government, but it's working very, very well in other sectors. For instance, for social services, for elderly people, and things like that, okay? But even in construction sector, it works. And Fundación Laboral de la Construcción has led this kind of processes as well, okay? So, if you want to become a construction technician, you should go through the education system, but you can get a vocational certificate if you study 540 hours in the labor system, in the employment system. And if you want to become a site manager, a middle manager, you should go to a higher vocational education, 2,000 hours, or you can go to a vocational certificate level with 750 hours. Obviously, the ones coming from the vocation, for the education system have more competences, okay? But have you got the idea? And both pieces of papers are exactly the same. The difference is one certificate, only one qualification, and the other one certificates more than one qualification. But both are issued on behalf of the King of Spain. In Italy, impossible, because you do not have any king. No more. But I wanted to demonstrate that both are official. And no matter whether you come from educational training or through experience. Okay? So, theoretical implementation. If you are a teenager, please go to your vocational education diploma, no matter your studies. There is a solution. Okay? The basic, the middle, or the higher. If you are a worker affected by a crisis in another sector, you can reskill to our sector with an official vocational training, which leads to a certificate. If you are an experienced and qualified construction worker, let's say AQF4, a bricklayer, a technician, and you want to upskill to a European qualification level additional, let's say to become a site manager, you should go for a an official vocational training, so for a certificate. And if you are a competent worker, because you've been working at work sites for many years, but you cannot demonstrate you are competent because you do not have the piece of paper, go to an acknowledged and accreditation based on experience to get your certificate. So how much feasible is this in our industry? Well, in the case of let's say the construction technician, the bricklayer, in my opinion, if you are a solar energy installer, it's very difficult to do the reskilling. It's feasible, theoretically speaking, but it's difficult. It could be easier if you wanted to become an electrician, because there are more similarities, but it's feasible. If you are a bricklayer, but you do not have the paper, go to the process. It works very well, but the problem is that this process can only be offered by the public government, and they are not offering it right now because of a lack of budget, okay? But it works. If you are a teenager, go through the logical way to the vocational education programs. And if you want, if you are an assistant or a helper, the logical way to develop your career is this, studying your certificates. What about the middle managers? Well, theoretically, everything is possible exactly the same, but it's practically impossible to reskill a middle manager from another sector to our sector, because some experience is critical in our site managers. It's critical. Employers do not appreciate an added value in someone coming from another industry to become a site manager. If you are a site manager, and in Spain, most of site managers are in their 50s, okay? They have a lot of experience, but not official paper. It could be a solution. We are claiming for it, but not offered yet for site managers, unfortunately. Theoretically, it's possible, but unfortunately, not offered yet. And what else? Bricklayer who wants to upgrade to site manager. This is absolutely feasible. There are many courses. We develop them, okay? We offer them. And what about the possibility of a teenager to become a site manager directly in the educational system? Well, this is feasible, but, and to explain the but, I'm going to go back. In my opinion, this is a personal opinion, if you, can you see the mouse? Yes. If you come this way, and here you want to study to become a site manager, theoretically it's possible, but you do not have any competence related to the construction sector. So it's going to be extremely difficult for you to be competent, because experience is mandatory, I think, to become a site manager. So if you come this way, this way is feasible. I think this is feasible, even this way. Mandatory secondary education, then here, and then site manager. But this way, I mean, it's feasible, but I wouldn't bet for that, okay? And I think this is my whole picture. There are many things that should be improved regarding innovation, regarding other topics. I don't know if we will have enough time to discuss about it, but let's say the general picture is this. Thank you so much.